That shit loud?
Hey,
That shit loud?
it was loud, huh?
Yeah, beep boop beep boop boop
It's
beep
just,
beep boop.
yeah, it's like the hold music. Um, yeah,
Hey,
so
Paso, Mafaso.
I gotta say this. This is welcome everybody to the Tuesday Sports Space. If you're listening to this after the fact, I gotta say I'm starting to think that the sports franchises we follow are trying to murder us.
Starting to think. Listen, I'm a fan
Yeah.
of the two teams that are tied for a 13-year playoff drought,
Which would be the New York Jets,
and the
as in they're yet to be good. And
yeah, and the Mark Ruffalo Savers.
yeah. Oh God, I can't even think. You wouldn't like us when we're angry. We're never angry.
We're
Oh
so
God.
bad, bro.
It's just it's like it's if I were a more diehard sports fan and I had guns in the house, I would be tasting them every day following these sports teams. I just watched the Phillies get, well, it's not over yet, but the rape scene is over. Their shit has just been pushed in on national television by the Mets. They just went down 7-0 at the top of the eighth. And dude, it's very depressing some money together.
Yeah, and
It's not good.
the fucking Dodgers lost yesterday, 1-1 or some shit like
I
that,
know. I
right?
saw. Yeah, they
This
lost to San Diego.
so it's 1-1 in that series, right? Yanks are 1-1 in their series. It's like
This is 1-1. It's about to be 2-1 Mets by a lot, by the way. Like, and the Phillies, when they're losing these games, they're not just losing them, they're getting absolutely fucking obliterated.
you think baseball's cool again or not yet? Do you remember when
You know,
baseball was really really like everybody was into baseball? Like there's even movies about periods in time where everybody was into baseball was the thing around the shit.
well, I think Otani helps, right? Like when you talk to baseball fans, but you know what's interesting is like
He's not
I you
white,
know yes, but
so
what's interesting to me about baseball fans right now is everyone openly acknowledges that Shohei Otani is the greatest baseball player who ever lived, and we have the ability to watch him right now. And I don't know if it's because he's Asian, but people are like, "Yeah, so that's interesting," and you're like, "Are you going to tune in?" They go, "I don't think so."
hmm.
Like,
Yeah, dude.
it's
But
crazy.
there's a thing about an American doing it.
Yeah. And
So,
I also, I don't know about how it was at the time, but I got to think Babe Ruth being like a fat white guy
but
who looked
that's the
like
point. Like
Joe Everyman
that's
is
the
better
point,
than like
right?
a super soldier Asian man.
That's the point. Like the ultimate democracy that is baseball, where everybody plays, and you're like, "Who's this fat guy?" And it's like, dude, he's on the same team as that fast black dude who's been running around the bases. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're like, this game is crazy. And you're like, I know. And you're like, it's kind of slow. You go, don't take your eye off the ball because it's about to. Yeah, here it goes. Right? You know, like
Yeah.
that is not being sold anymore. Right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point about,
The
there was this
game isn't being sold.
well, we've talked about this on the show for the last 2, 3 years. Is that that they have got to find a way to make it exciting, and as much as it's dollar hot dogs when you're there, it's there's the TV product is absolute garbage. You know what I mean? And they don't do a good job of selling their stars. And I think a
Selling
lot
the
of it is
stars
because
is
they're
probably a
either
big one. Yeah.
yeah, I mean they have the same like boring white guy problem that the NHL has, and then all of the Dominicans and Japanese don't speak any
Yeah,
English.
but there's a certain thing about it, right? So, like, not to be like Tony Soprano, like, what happened to the Gary Coopers, the strong silent types? But I saw this thing the other day. Oh, I know why I saw it. Because San Diego Padres are playing the Dodgers. So the Padres had like their thing and it showed up on Instagram or something. And it was them honoring Tony Gwynn. And it was just like, when he had his like whole number and name like in their ring of honor or whatever they had. And just like Jeter, just like it's a real baseball thing to do. The guy and cliche, the tip of the cap. Like you just go out there and you sort of just give them a little tip of the cap and you go back. Baseball's not flashy. Baseball's not about the deepest. They don't like if you flip bats. They don't like when you fucking do things that's like, hey, that's not in the unwritten rules, you know? Like
Yeah,
baseball's really very not to for lack of words conservative in that regard. Like even the most like humble thing and great thing you can do is like tip your cap and be like, thanks guys. You know,
well,
it's
it's kind of like they need the spice that's in the movie Major League. Like maybe show one of the Dominicans doing voodoo. Maybe they should be eating the cats and the dogs
they're
during
eating
the
the
seventh inning
dogs.
stretch.
They're eating the dogs. Seventh inning, that's what they do. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like that, yeah, there's
That's
no
why they call
sizzle.
them the Guardians now. I don't know if you know this. In Cleveland, they're guarding them. The cats. They gotta guard them.
Yeah, they need those gargoyles.
In the
They're up
underworld,
there. They're watching
they
Haitians.
don't like them in the underworld. They don't. That's why the Egyptians not fans of cats.
Yeah, wasn't there like a Haitian character in the movie Constantine who was like a demon or something? I mean, I'm just saying it tracks. It definitely tracks.
I just
Um
remember the mummy being afraid of cats. He's like, oh, and you're like, what? The cat? He's like, ah.
yeah,
And they're
the
like the keepers of the underworld. And you're like, yeah, that checks out, dude. Fucking cats are
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
cats is
if
definitely
you
the
like
keeper of the
cats,
underworld.
yeah, the only thing worse than liking cats is liking eating cats.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of anything worse.
Liking the Jets is pretty fucking bad at this point, dude. I'm
It's
telling you.
pretty close. It's pretty close.
Every year they find some. I can't even have one fucking year. Aaron Rodgers is healthy, and they managed to fuck this up. I can't.
Also, if you're
It's
gonna fire
crazy.
Robert Sala, why not October 7th? You know what I
Well, he
mean?
waited
Like,
till October 8th. He walked in there, and after all the Jew ceremonies he had yesterday, he walked in the building. And here's the thing, and this is kind
do
of
you think Woody Johnson paraglided in to just like
no,
we have
but
to have
no,
a
but
meeting?
no, but here's the thing. So there's a couple of conspiracy theories out there that said around the building, or even in not around the building, but just like in his office in some places, um, Salah would have the Lebanese flag
Oh, okay.
and that whole thing. And so Woody Johnson, check this out. Rich Samini.
That was the proverbial straw.
Well, I was gonna say that Rich Samini posted earlier that um, basically like remember this wasn't Woody Johnson's selection in the first place. Christopher Johnson or whatever selected him when Woody was being the ambassador to the UK. Now, there, Woody was appointed by Trump in that position. Like he very much
Oh,
is
oh yeah, okay.
super pro Israel, and so like it is not lost on me that the day after that, like I wasn't being facetious. I kind of was. It was tongue in cheek, like when I had posted that. But like I really did realize. Oh shit, dude! The Lebanese Muslim dude he just fired is the day after the whole. They all had ceremonies and all types of shit like that, and obviously in a city where they never forget and this guy celebrates 9/11 differently, it's going to be hard to be on the same page as his fucking owner, right? So
I
it's
just
like
picture Sala being like Kumail Nanjiani in the movie The Big Sick when he's like, "Yeah, we lost 18 of our best guys that day,
yeah, exactly. He's like,
and none of them played special
and
teams."
he
I'll
was
tell you
just
that.
like, how do you guys celebrate 9/11? He's like, celebrate 9/11. He's like, yeah, it's just funny that both parties would both have like a hamburger hot doggy sort of event.
Yeah, I think except that the Palestinians like to strap all their hot dogs together and
Yeah.
serve them in bulk.
Yeah, so like I don't know how much of it like the next day, but on that Monday, $157 million got awarded in aid to Lebanon. That probably pissed off Woody.
And he's just like, I'll be
because he's so
goddamned if I
pro.
have one of these guys
Yeah, I
continue to
just think
fucking.
I'm just so fucking mad. Like, you have no idea what this means. Like, it's week 5 and you fire the coach before you tried to make a trade for Devontae Adams. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, then you don't fire the offensive coordinator, who, by the way, is the reason that everything is fucked. You got a 40-year-old quarterback who is throwing the ball 54 times a game while he's shaking the rust off. He doesn't want to be doing that, but you're throwing him out there, and he has no problem being accountable and like taking the blame for the team. But he shouldn't have to do that shit. You're a piece of shit for that, Hackett. But Hackett thinks because Rogers is his buddy and he's a superstar and all the blame will go on him anyways. He kind of will be like, oh, I'll get scapegoated as a coach. And a bunch of players have been saying like he doesn't have confidence. And you cannot be a fucking, all you are is an OC. You're not the head coach. All you have to do is call plays. You don't have confidence. That's your jobs. Have confidence in the plays that you draw up. What the fuck am I going to execute if you draw up some bullshit? You're like, hey, coach, is this going to work? And you're like, I guess, dude. We'll see. Like, what the
Well, I
fuck?
mean, this is in a weird way too. I mean, we talk a lot about the similarities between Philadelphia and the Jets, but they both had head coach problems ending last season and going into this season. And it was like ownership was sort of like, well, maybe we're good enough to, get around the coaching issue. And I think they both have proven they're not. There's no amount of NFL talent because there is so much NFL talent. There's no amount of talent that can get you around a locker room that has no identity and a coach that has no identity. And so I go back to what we said at the beginning of last season when we were talking about our favorite guy, Motor City Dan Campbell. And people were saying, like, oh, a lot of people in the NFL, Dan, don't think you really, are that sharp when it comes to X's and O's. And he was like, let him keep thinking that because I think you can lose coordinators and you can change the X's and O's and you can change scheme. But what you cannot do is lose the culture in the locker room. And that to me is something that I don't know if Salah ever really built it,
No, he never
but
said
it
it. He
definitely
never
wasn't there
set.
after Aaron Rodgers.
He never set a culture. Even when they were on Hard Knocks, he was like, "All right, guys, it's time we build an identity." I was like, "What? Don't you have one?"
How
Like,
great would it be if when he said that, he just took everyone, you have a turban underneath your seat? If you could just put that on.
dude, I just don't understand how. First of all, and McAfee's show, they covered all this about these stats that I didn't even know. He has a worse winning percentage than fucking Todd Bowles did in 3 years there. In the 3 years that he went there, in the first half, he's outscored like 276 points, which meant they got off to the slowest possible starts that you could come off to in a football game, and quite frankly, that's how he coaches. It's just a very lackadaisical, all right, guys, let's go out there and do it. And then they have a stiff defense who's stagnant, who doesn't give up a lot of yards and points.
It's
And
like a
then
bend but don't break.
they're always in the game. That it was just like, okay, how about we score some touchdowns? And then he has no way to evaluate offensive line talent or develop it. And he's a defensive coach, right? So like
Well,
I feel like defensive coaches should be able to develop all the offensive talent possible because you would know how to beat defenses. And the opposite, I think offensive coaches would know how to coach up safeties and shit like that because they'd be like, this is how I would beat your shitty zone coverage. If your hips aren't right, I could do this. Like, you should be able to coach the opposite side of the ball. And as a head coach, your job is to manage personalities, especially the high paid ones, and uh, form the identity of the team, but put your team in the best position to win. And the second thing that comes with that is clock management. And he's arguably one of the worst clock managing head coaches in the National Football League. And it's been that way for 3 years. It didn't matter about Zach Wilson. It didn't matter about um, Aaron Rodgers or anybody else you could think of that come in last year. We had no. They tried to address the O line, and they whiffed on you and I watched tape on the kid from Penn State, and we're like, this is the worst tackle in the draft. Why is he ranked so high? Is it just because he's big and black from Penn State? Maybe. And they're like, well, he hasn't given up a sack. And they run quick game. That's a 3-step drop with their quarterback. 1, 2, 3, ball is out. He's
I
fucking
mean, his
like
footwork is that of a drunken circus
yeah,
clown.
he
I
was
mean,
like
anybody can
clanking it.
watch tape.
Yeah, he was clanking his ankles together. He doesn't have much bend, and they're like, he hasn't given up a sack in the Big Ten. And you're like, okay,
Well, and this is the problem with like this is why, and I got to give you credit because you called this. You said it would be Sala before it was Douglas. I said it should be Douglas before Sala. Turned out you were right. But here's the reason why I go back to Joe Douglas. And I don't know if it's Joe Douglas per se, or it's the scouting, or it's who has the final say on who gets picked. Because sometimes we know this with the power dynamics in front office and coaching and ownership. It's not always the GM who has the final say on a draft pick. But what's interesting to me is we already talked about Fashanu being a bad pick. You've got to give credit where credit is due with the year of Garrett Wilson, Double J, the pass rusher from Florida State, and Sauce Gardner, all in the first round. They are all core pieces for the next decade. Two of them were offensive and defensive rookie of the year. So that's a huge win. But you kind of got to look at like the concerning thing
well,
about,
they're all
hold
not
on.
hits, right?
Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the best team in football right now. So there has to be some concern about like, okay, clearly we know how to evaluate guys. Why can't we get it out of some of these guys, and particularly at the quarterback position? And I think in some cases they're overvaluing potential versus productivity when you look at a guy like Sam Darnold, or you look at a guy like Zach Wilson. I don't even know that they were bad picks, but I think they were guys that needed development, and in both cases they weren't able to do it. And then Sam Darnold is now somewhere where he's thriving,
Right.
and who knows what will happen with Zach Wilson. But if you went with a production over potential model, you would have drafted Lamar Jackson instead of Sam Darnold, and
Right.
that would not be an issue. You would have drafted and that's just the Sam Darnold draft. I'm trying to think about who Zach Wilson was up against, but I'm sure there are more accomplished players that could have been taken at number 2 overall that year when you abandoned Sam Darnold and started all over again. So, I don't know what the issue is there with is it the coaching staff not being able
Well,
to
I'll
develop
tell.
guys?
I
Is
can
it
tell you how they're. This is the dysfunction of the Jets, right? Like I said, so Woody Johnson says basically is like Saleh wasn't his guy, right? Well, Saleh never wanted Zach Wilson, right? Saleh was like, how the fuck did you just let Sam Darnold go out the door, right? We could have developed him. We could have worked with that, right? He never wanted. So and here you got an owner who didn't want the coach. You got a coach who didn't want the quarterback, and then Joe Douglas was like, "I know what to do. I'll bring Aaron fucking Rodgers in here and a bunch of other fucking weapons to go with our other shit, and that'll fix everything for everybody." Okay, and they're like, "All right, let's see." Right? So Joe Douglas in where like they're not all hits, right? He got the offensive defensive rookie of the year. He got Brees Hall. He got fucking Braylon. But there's been some fucking whiffs like that offensive lineman instead of Brock Bowers. There's also the fact that you took the running back after you took Braylon, right? You drafted another running back after that. Like we couldn't use that other position somewhere else, right?
Well,
So,
and by the way, those are good picks. I don't have a problem with any of those running back picks, but then again, okay, so to me
but
that
I mean,
looks
after you
like
draft Braylon in the fourth, why would you go and waste that other pick on a
but
running
well,
back? What,
regardless but this is the point where I'm talking about the left hand is not talking to the right hand.
right.
It
And
may
that's the
those are good
dysfunction.
picks. Those are yes, and what I mean by that is those are good picks. If you are changing your philosophy to we're going to run the ball, we're going to be the best at running the ball. That doesn't mean you then have game plans where against the best passing offense in the NFL, you throw the ball 50 times.
Right. And then
Like you should be
that's it.
running through that bullpen of running backs, and Aaron Rodgers' job should be play action, closing drives out inside the red zone. Like
It should be
so, to
like
me,
Peyton's first year in Denver,
yes,
where he
yes,
handed
yes.
the ball off 1,000 times because he had a neck injury. Well, Aaron Rodgers clearly shaking rust off and getting on the same page with this. Now, I don't know what's up with the first round pick, Garrett Wilson, who you think should be in the slot, and I agree. Here's a dude who's trying to do too much because he's not used to somebody as good as Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football. So I
Right.
watched Kurt Warner breakdown of the last game, and Kurt Warner goes, watch this. Aaron Rodgers is throwing a go route to Garrett Wilson, but watch how fast he throws it. It's almost like he throws it on like a quick count. It's like, hut, he drops back, boom, he's already throwing the ball that direction, but he's on a fucking fade. It's crazy. And he was like, Garrett Wilson, I know what he's thinking as a young receiver who's played with other quarterbacks. He's going, nobody's gonna throw it this fast right now. He goes, yeah, pal, Aaron Rodgers is. And like listening to Kurt Warner break that down, I go, yeah, there's the disconnect. He's so much better than these guys that they haven't had enough time together to do that shit. You don't know how much of that is on Aaron Rodgers going, you know, to fucking
Late. Yeah,
Egypt
going
and all
late.
his other
Go
fucking places and shit.
right, right.
He thought, but in a way, again, falls back on Hackett. If you know these pieces, because Douglas was trying to go, hey man, I got you all these things. Why are you not running the ball? Why are you
Well, last year it makes sense that they're not running the ball because Brees was injured again. Cook didn't work out. Dalvin Cook.
But that's why we
About
drafted
a
Braylon.
Conda, about a Conda couldn't stay healthy. So to me, when you draft two guys that were highly productive battering rams in college football in Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, you're going, okay, we're not going to let injuries keep us from running the football this year. That's our
Right.
philosophy, and that has not been the offensive philosophy at all. So
No, they're
where
all
is the
healthy.
breakdown?
They're all
Right.
healthy, and now you have a stable of running backs, one of the greatest players of all time at play action, and not running the football. He's throwing 54 times. He's 40. It's
Yeah.
week 5. What are you
And
talking about?
and to me, if I'm the Raiders and I'm looking to make a Devontae Adams trade with the Jets, I'm getting one of those running backs, and the one I'd probably want
It's
is
so funny you said that like you're Denzel Washington in that thing. I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with
no.
something.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying I'm getting one of those running backs. Probably, and the one I would want is the Bonaconda because I think he's got the most upside of the four. But um, and the ones they drafted this year, they're probably not going to trade so quickly. But yeah, I mean, it just and I don't know that making that move for Devontae is necessarily going to do anything other than make them feel like they have to throw the ball even more,
But here's the
which is a
thing,
concern.
and this is the only thing I would say about. I didn't think we needed him until I looked at the numbers. And here's like the type of numbers I was looking at. Alan Lazard leads the NFL in drops. Last game, Garrett Wilson finally got 100 yards with Aaron Rodgers throughout the first 5 games. You know how many times it took him to do it? 13 receptions to get 100 yards and a touchdown. So,
Wow.
so he's not getting separation. He's not getting and it was on 21 targets. So it was like, boom, boom, like feeding him the ball. Like, here, bitch, get 100 in a Hackett system. Maybe Hackett will gain more confidence because he's got a plug and play receiver who's what knows all the calls, knows all the hand signals, knows the timing of the routes. And I would say the Saints, but Carr just got hurt last night. Make the deal today.
Yeah, which to
And I
me
thought, yeah, I thought that was going to happen.
sends the message loud and clear. That your season isn't over even though you fired the coach. That to me is like, now that why would you make a Devontae Adams trade? Because you have to send the message to that team that the year is not scrapped
Well, you're saying,
and that
yeah,
you
you
really
send the
are
message
making
of like
moves.
you fired the coach to win.
Right. Yeah. Which
And
people are, which is what they said, but that it's never going to look like that unless you start winning games.
mhm.
And I like Ulbrich, but to me, there's two things Ulbrich has to do if you don't want to scrap this season and you want to be this year's Antonio Pierce. Like if you want to be this year's defensive coordinator, interim coach who becomes a head coach, you got to do two things. You got to walk into Hackett's room and go, if you don't run the ball 30 times this week, I'm going to fire you. And two, go to my general manager, Joe Douglas, and go, we have to bring in Devontae Adams, or else we have no saving grace for this season. just from a mindset perspective. And I don't know that Aaron Rodgers doesn't need that extra vote of confidence of like, hey man, we're still committed to you and trying to make this thing work, even though it looks like we're pressing the reset button mid-season. Not even mid-season, we're a third of the way through.
There's something else that needs to get addressed, and I told you this before.
Oh, the Hassan Reddick issue?
Well, that I mean that's that too. I mean, for as good as our roster is, we're missing a pass rusher because we're not getting sacks, and we're missing an actual center. Titman is not it. He's light in the ass. He's getting thrown the fuck around. He's too tall. I don't like him. I don't like him there. It's
Yeah,
like,
so
and
I'm
we
trying to
and
think who would be out
we
there.
can't move the ball.
Yeah, I'm trying to
If we get
think.
dominated on the line of scrimmage. Now, mind you, our two two of our losses of the three losses are against NFC tough defenses in San Francisco 49ers and the Vikings. The third loss is against the Broncos, which has a very stout defense, but it's pathetic that we lost that game.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so in all three of those, you're going, we can't move the fucking ball. And it's like literally at point of attack, bro. It's on. You can turn the film on and just be like, damn, they're just putting their hands in the center's chest and driving them back. That's sad.
Yeah.
Like, get it together. What are you
Yeah,
doing?
and I'm trying to think if there are teams out there. The Browns could maybe be a team that's looking to move an offensive lineman because they have a lot of salary on that offensive line. They're not going to be able to keep all those guys and Deshaun Watson's contract. So that could be a team that if they lose a few more games, there could be some guys in play there. Trying to think who else could have some
Dude,
guys in play
Stephen A. Smith
offensive
said the
line wise.
funniest thing about Deshaun Watson. Did you see that clip?
Yeah, the clip you sent me where he said he's so bad that I would be okay if they wanted to arrest him.
Yeah, he was like, if they arrested him for being awful, I'd be okay with that. Like, golly, how bad you got to be if they for them to be like, you're going to jail?
Dude, and by the way, Jameis Winston is such a fucking goofball.
Oh God,
Like, how bad do you got to be where guys in the locker room are starting to go like, maybe Jameis Winston should be the guy?
yeah, because he's borderline retarded.
Right. So, and by the way, listen, this is the thing that no other sports show's going to talk about. We said for the longest time that maybe the thing keeping Carson Wentz from becoming one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL is not getting jerked off enough. Maybe Deshaun Watson
Too
jerking off
much,
too
too
much and
much.
then now no
The
more. But
balance.
maybe it was all jerked out of him when he left Houston, and maybe that's what they knew. They were like, we can't re-sign this guy. He's all of his juice is out. Literally.
I got an idea.
He's out of juice.
Maybe they need to be on the same team, like Nig and Yang, and
Yeah, they just balance each other out,
the Nig Yang twins.
Yeah,
Uh,
Carson is overflowing with confidence. We'll say brimming with confidence,
Yo,
and the other guy is devoid of it.
and Deshaun just they're just throwing out at practice, and he just goes, "Man, how do you really keep it together, Deshaun?" He goes, "Well, I just unload all the time, man. You just gotta get that release in." And it's like, release? It's like, well, I mean, I've been working on my
I,
release.
I like I
I got
like
a
how we
quarterback
just
coach, and then
I
he's
like
just
how
like,
we just
yeah, man, nah, I ain't talking about that. I got girls,
Yeah,
know
I
them
like how we
bitches.
just rebooted. I like how we just rebooted Remember the Titans, but instead of teaching each other about culture and faith, they teach each other about jerking off.
No, well, definitely
Strong side.
left hand, strong hand. No, no, he just goes out there and just like literally just gets massages, and the owner of the Texans, after he was like, man, I want to get traded. He was just like, you've been out here getting massages from these bitches. Fuck this motherfucker. And then you would think all that would be fine if he just got together. But you had said This motherfucker is out in L.A. house shopping.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, he was out in LA buying a house on a real estate show with his girlfriend, and I'm just like, you should have to win a couple games in Cleveland before you can be shopping for vacation homes, dude. Like, there's just something about a guy getting all that money in that contract, not living up to it, and then being like, "Oh, Imma still live like I'm winning, though." And it's like, I don't know, just there's something very un-American that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, buy the vacation house when when you win a Super Bowl. Don't buy it when you haven't made the playoffs since you signed that deal. You know, you've barely stayed healthy for an entire season.
I mean,
We'll
what's the
bring
availability is the best.
we'll bring Debo in here and see if he's got some thoughts since we're talking about Deshaun Watson. I don't know if this come in. He's on mute, but Debo, we added you as a speaker. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I was just curious. I know it's talking football right now, but has anybody seen the Mets? Are they really legit?
Oh,
No, we
yeah. I
fucking
mean,
hate them.
yeah. I mean, as a Phillies fan, I hate to say,
They're
yeah, they
actually
look
for
very
real.
legit.
Yeah,
Yeah, they look very legit. I mean,
They're
they're
up seven
putting
two
a
right now in the eighth.
bro.
yeah, they're putting a prison beating on the Phillies in this series,
Hold,
and
but like, it was always like they spent all that money on pitching and shit. You didn't think that they also, they spent money on a couple of hitters, but they're hitting way above what they were in the regular season,
well, and this is
right?
the thing though. This is what October baseball is. It's like it doesn't matter what the regular season record is at
Yeah,
all.
but the Mets
I
getting
mean,
hot. Ugh.
it's just when it's just about when guys get hot. And right now, dude, like it's like every bat. They got a guy on the Mets, Viestro or whatever his name is,
Yeah,
who
yeah,
was like a mid-season call up, who's just smacking the shit out of the ball every game.
yeah,
And it's like it's when you get hot like that, that's when teams start to look real scary in playoff baseball
dude.
is
If you're
when they're
swinging
getting
the
it
if
from.
dudes are swinging the bat too, they're not coming out of the lineup, and you're just like rolling with it. If you have a bullpen, you're gonna go deep, right? So it's like who has the who it comes down to like literally bullpen and whoever has the hot bats because anyone you don't want to be like, oh, is this the time where they're going to get out of their hitting slump? Like it never really happens.
By the way, this brings up one good question I had when we were talking about series. You know, I was watching Face Off, NHL Face Off on Amazon, and they're talking about the Stanley Cup being the hardest, trophy to win in pro sports because you have to win 16 playoff games, and you might have to play as many as 30 something to win it. Um, the 5 game
Does that make it the
NLDS and
hardest or the
ALDS
longest?
series. Well, it's the hardest by far, but the 5 game series in the division round in Major League Baseball, I think more sports should go to a 5 game opening series. I really do.
NBA
Like,
used to have that.
yeah, I just don't, I understand the mentality behind game 7 and the marketing behind game 7, but like, let's speed this shit up.
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't need a fucking
only
7 game series to start the
the
playoffs.
only reason that baseball would do it, which I think basketball should, and go back to it, is because they have so many games, home games and away games, right? 163 regular season games, 80 something home games. So the revenue from the amount of games, like in ticket sales, that's what they like live for. The NBA was just like, wait a minute, two more games is more revenue because why? Well, they only hold
82.
18,000 in their arena,
Yeah.
right? They hold less people and shit,
And there are way fewer games
right?
from a revenue perspective. I get it. I mean, it makes sense, but
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 them
just as a
dragging out their
viewer,
shit, yeah, it's insane.
yeah, I mean, as a viewer, it's like I just think I think with a shorter series, the stakes are higher in those early games, which makes it more exciting. Like, the Mets go up by a game today, they're a game away from eliminating the Phillies. Then so it basically becomes like a must-win territory for teams very early
Yeah,
on in the series that it's 5.
winning three instead of winning four is such a fucking difference maker when you're like, oh shit, where the game is on the line, or the
Yeah.
But
series
you
is
got
on
to
the line.
think it's all about the bullpen, like you said. And if you're going 7 games, you're using every pitcher every
That's
game.
true. Yeah, that's a great
So
point
So I mean
was
too.
that might change the whole atmosphere of the last 2 games because I mean your guys are done, their arms are garbage, and
so
you're softball pitching.
Do the Dodgers come in and be desperate and have Otani come and pitch in the final game if
Well,
they get
that's the
desperate?
They've done that.
yeah,
They've
that's
done that with the Astros. Did that last when they won last. It was last year or the year before.
yeah, to answer your question, if the NLCS is the Mets and the Dodgers, and the Mets are
O,
hitting
o,
off the Dodgers like this,
Otani's
Otani
pitching
pitches.
for
He's
sure, right?
pitching.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
pitching.
yeah, yeah.
His first time in the playoffs after playing for dog shit Anaheim for his entire career. He's like, "Oh, so we no go home? I throw a baseball."
They ask him too. They'll be like, "Otani, you think you're gonna win the game?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I bet we're gonna win." Oh no, I said the bet. No,
No, no, I know.
I
I said
don't the
you can.
bet anymore.
Yeah, yeah. He said you can bet on it. No, oh, sorry. Translate to say you cannot bet on it, but
Trans
I pitch.
translate.
But I think it's funny because I live in Missouri, so everybody out here has the Kansas City flags, and they're going hard. I'm talking about like from Walmart to Costco to Walgreens. They're
So with
selling,
the Royals shit, huh?
yeah, Royals, and it's like man,
So yo,
their
but
main
so
guy.
they're. I mean, you look at the how they beat the Yankees, right? They put up a bunch of runs on them, and then you think that okay, how are you going to beat the Yankees? You're going to out pitch them, right? No, their fucking sluggers are still going to fucking find a way to score runs. So you got to outscore them, and that's what they did. They beat the shit out of them. I think, like for real, like they just outplayed them in all facets, and like that's what the Mets are doing to the Phillies right now. It's just like, dude, all phases of the game, y'all get whooped in. Like, are we serious right now?
And here's the thing that nobody's talking about. Like we talk about, you got to find a way to spice up playoff baseball. Right now, there is a playoff series between the Guardians and the Tigers, and I think the team that loses that series, that city should be nuked. Like, let's really spice it up.
Holy
You know what
shit!
I mean? Like let's make it really interesting, right? If you happen to have a playoff series between two of the worst cities in America, let's
Yes.
spice it up a little bit.
Somehow, wait a minute.
Would anybody notice though?
Minneapolis. This just in: Minneapolis loses the series, and you're like, wait, they're not even in it.
Yeah, they nuked it. They're not even in the playoffs. They did it to themselves.
First of
Yeah,
all,
I mean, is anybody? I mean,
I
that's
got to
what's
hold
so
on.
funny to me
I got
about.
a question though.
Okay.
Does Otani pitch before that? Because the Padres have tied that series up, and that is a they're not.
I think it comes down to today's game, right? I think if the Dodgers win, there's no pressure. But I think if they go down, if the Padres rally like the Mets rally today against the Phillies, like keep in mind the Phillies, isn't it the Phillies and the Dodgers were the two teams that did not have to play their way into the playoffs?
The
Yes.
So,
first seeds.
yeah, they were the bye teams. So, that they're looking, at least the Phillies anyway, are looking like
You lose
that
to the
bye
Mets,
hurt
you got to
them.
be bi or gay or something.
And they did that in Boston when Boston was in the World Series. They did that with Schmaltz. They played him 3 games, but they only did him 3 innings.
But I mean, if Roberts and this team lose to the Padres, let's say this hypothetically, they lose this series, he's got to go, right? Regardless
Yeah.
of his contract and extension, he's got to go, right?
Well, I mean, it's again and here's a little bit of conspiracy theory for you. I almost feel like the Otani gambling story at the beginning of the season and in the offseason was a distraction for the story that nobody's talking about, which is Trevor Bauer's massive lawsuit against Roberts, the Dodgers, and the MLB for essentially throwing this guy out of baseball from a bullshit accusation. And so when you say Roberts has to go, I don't know that that's going to have as much to do with what's happening on the field as it may have to do with all of these other moving parts. Because that's going to be, I mean, you talk about Otani's contract and what that's going to cost them. What's the lawsuit that Trevor Bauer has against them in the league going to cost them? Because
Yeah,
it's you got rid of. I mean, let's call it what it is. You got rid of one of the best aces in baseball because bitches be lying. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so you could have done the right thing and just said, "Come on back. We were
Apologize.
wrong. We apologize." And this is a
Why is
terrible
that? No,
thing.
why is that so hard? Like, I always have this problem when you give.
Same
Let's
thing
say,
happened to, by the way, same thing happened to Jake Virtanen with the Vancouver
right.
Canucks.
So, but I mean, like, you go to a hotel or a restaurant or someplace, a rental car, right? And they will charge your money. They will take your money fast. You order something from someplace, right? And then they go, "We need to refund you," and the refund may take 7 business days. And I go, "But how did you take the money instantly? But you can't give it back as fast." And
And
it's
well, the
this.
reality is they can, they just choose not to.
Exactly, and it's the same. That is the similar. That's the same analogy that I'm trying to give for like these teams.
Well, and to me, it was sort of like I think it was almost like a business decision that was made using this. It was like a convenient situation where the Dodgers were like, listen, we have one of the highest payrolls in baseball, if they weren't the highest payroll in baseball. And at the time, they had May and some of these other pitching prospects, and they probably thought, man, we really don't need Trevor Bauer, even though we just paid him all this money. So, we have Walker Bueller, and we have such a deep lineup of pitchers. Maybe we can get out of this one. And I think they took an opportunity to get out of it without really questioning, is this the right thing? And I just think it sets a really dangerous precedent for the kind of thing going forward. And this, if to play devil's advocate, assuming Deshaun Watson was
Loaded.
innocent, assuming Deshaun Watson, there was no foul play other than just paying to get jerked off, which I think is what we all think that was. This really hasn't hit the NFL yet, where and the NFL has, because they have the Players Association, they'll do this thing where they'll put a guy on the commissioner's exempt list, they'll wait to see what happens, and then they'll make a decision. Whereas like in the NHL and the MLB, it's like these teams will make like look what happened to all the Team Canada kids. They're all out of hockey until this thing gets resolved. And by the way, this is Canada. They reopened a fucking criminal investigation for something that in America would be beyond the statute of limitations.
Also, didn't like what the fuck did Von Miller do?
Oh yeah, we haven't even
He
talked
hit
about that.
that was
He had to like
abuse.
hit a bitch or something, right?
Yeah, he hit his ex girlfriend or some shit like that.
So speaking of DV domestic violence stuff,
He blitzed her, and what did she have? One of the Jets linemen in front of her? Didn't matter.
did you see Georgia player was arrested for beating an unborn child? The way that Georgia laws would work, essentially, he beat a pregnant chick, but you get a charge for beating an unborn child.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
No, but I'm saying I never even heard that charge, and I was like, yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that really needs to get addressed. Like, I think Kirby Smart has had the most. This guy's had the most criminals on a team since Urban Meyer. Like, I have never seen anything like that. That is crazy. Next is probably the Chiefs because they got a whole bunch of shit going on in that squad. I don't know how they keep winning other than the refs. Um, the Chiefs, that team is wild, bro. Kelsey's getting like 4 yards a game, and they're undefeated.
That's another guy. He's been juiced. A lot of these guys have had all their juice taken out of them and they can't play anymore.
You think his fucking juice has been wheezed? They wheezed the
I think he's
juice?
yeah, I think the juice has been wheezed. I think he's been milked.
Hey,
I think. Listen,
one thing,
that's the danger when you start banging a chick who's only dated faggots her entire life. And she's like, "Oh my god, I'm a real man. Let me get all this juice."
And you know what, dude? He's tired of it.
But the NFL is making so much money now more than before because of that. They're not letting that go away. They're not going to let that go away.
I know he's like stuck in a relationship now that he like
the,
thought he wanted, and he was like, "Dude, I really like Taylor Swift." Like even when he
the
was a
other
young
thing
player, and like
is
we're gonna make this happen.
he doesn't want it. Like he's probably, and he's also looking at Jason right now, going like, I want to be retired. This guy's in every fucking commercial. His wife's in every commercial. He's probably making more money than he was making in his entire football career this year, being a broadcaster, being a podcaster, and being in every
And what did
fucking
Travis
commercial
do?
on Sundays.
Travis
And
already
Travis is out there still trying to run fucking routes.
Nah. Travis been doing all the
And holding
press.
purses.
Travis been doing all the press and shit for the FX show that he's on.
Oh, the Ryan Murphy show.
Yeah, and he's got a podcast still, and he's doing all the same stuff as his retired brother, except he's in the league.
Yeah, and still has to go to practice every day and still has to
And
like
he's
game
also in
plan and
every commercial, except he sold his soul and did the Pfizer spokesperson stuff. You know,
terrible.
I love
We
that
got
commercial though. He shows them 3 Band-Aids because he just got 3 boosters.
yeah, dude, it's so ridiculous. Oh no, it's two because he says two at the same time, and then the three is I think there's at the end. He's just like, why not another of this one? Like, because the commercial is supposed to be he's getting a flu shot and a COVID vaccine at the same time, two at the same time, and you're just like, that's double the poison. I never had a flu shot in my life, bro. You out of your
yeah, Taylor Swift is about to get the first case of myocarditis from a vaccine injury.
yeah, vaccine. I like it, dude. She
Well, whatever happened with LeBron's son when that he had like a mild heart attack and they just went quiet on that real quick.
Well, now he's on the team with them, and it's the saddest form of nepotism you've ever seen because he's like a helicopter dad who's like overseeing everything. He's like, "Hey, Bronny's gonna start tonight," and they'd be like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, Bronny's gonna start. Bronny, come stand over here. Bronny, stand over here." Right? It's like that's how it looks. Like it looks like he's like overseeing everything, and this kid is not even. I mean, the kid's dream is what? Play on in the NBA. I doubt it was like be on the Lakers with my dad. But the only way he's going to get there is because his dad is doing that. And everybody goes, you know, he only got drafted because LeBron James is his dad. You go, no, he only got drafted because LeBron James is so good. He's still in the NBA. If LeBron wasn't in the NBA still, there's no way that kid goes to the fucking league, right? Like
Yes,
you're not going to just draft him and goes like, let's draft LeBron's kid. No, he's 6'2", right? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, he's only there because LeBron is still active. In fact, the Warriors said they almost drafted Bronny in order to lure LeBron away from the Lakers and sign with the Golden State Warriors, but quote unquote, out of respect for LeBron, they didn't. And that's the only other team that was going to draft Bronny. And their reason was clear to lure LeBron. It's because
yeah,
he's still an active player, dude. And he's so good that at
He's still got a couple years left.
dude, at 39 years old, all the teams in the Olympics, right, are fucking going at the Team USA. And 39-year-old LeBron James has to come in the game, right, and be like, okay, now we can win. Like this guy legit is still the best player in the world at 40, right? That's why his son is still is able to be on. You know what I mean? Like it's because he's so exceptional. And
could you
these
imagine? Could you imagine if the Mannings were like this and they were like, Cooper plays. It doesn't matter whether like imagine if they were like, we're so good, you better let our retarded brother play or else we're not playing.
yeah, but it like they always go like the retardation like skips a generation or whatever. So like
Yeah.
Cooper made Arch.
Yeah, well, yeah, but no, but the scrambling also skips a generation. So Arch Senior gave his son the ability to run.
That's what it is.
Arch's kid is going to be full blown downs. He's going to be a new set of downs.
Yeah, his name will be
Uh,
Nemesis.
Oh my God. Well, speaking of retarded people making their sports debut, did you see that Jessica Campbell, first ever NHL assistant coach, took her spot behind the bench for the Seattle Kraken today?
Disgusting.
I mean, first of all, they dropped a 2-0 lead. So I don't know if leads are her department, but not a good start for the lady-backed Kraken.
I thought Kraken is like a British term for pussy, right?
I don't know. I mean, it is now. I mean, it's an evil squid that I believe sinks ships. So what better to
Pussy,
have behind the bench?
squid, octopus,
Yeah,
pussy.
what a better thing to have behind your bench when you're a cursed sea monster than a woman. Aye, we aren't unlucky enough. Get me a bitch
this
behind the boards.
this fucking whore pirate. No, but what do you think about women coaching?
Well, hockey is the one sport where you could argue, I mean, because they do play at some of the highest levels, and with
Mm-hmm.
the exception of the speed and the checking, it's essentially the same sport.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And you could argue maybe basketball is the same thing with less physicality, but I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen if they're capable of doing it. The problem is we're never going to fucking hear the end of it. If she sucks and gets fired, it's going to be because she's a woman. If she's great and wins, it's going to be because she's a woman. And it's one of those things where it's like the identity of it is never going to stop being a thing.
Mm.
They still talk about black head coaches in the NFL. There's a documentary on Amazon I haven't watched yet that's like the
Bloaches
trajectory of the black quarterback. And it's like, are we still talking about this?
from
Like,
roaches to coaches.
black guys can
Reason.
play quarterback. A lot of them still also can't. And they can't read defenses and they can't process reads. It's not that different.
There's only
We're just
32 jobs,
right, exactly.
right? So if it was directly representative of the population, in which black people are 13% of the population, right? Let's say they'd be
There would be
third,
three teams. There would be three teams with black quarterbacks.
right? Because essentially you would do just what 13% of 32 teams.
Yeah, and so each team would basically get. I mean, what would be 13% of 53?
Fifth, what do you mean?
6 or 7. No, I'm saying if the entire roster was only 13%, be 6 or 7 guys, right? There'd be a lot more running the ball. I'll tell you that. You'd get a cornerback. Listen. If you could only get three, none of them would be quarterbacks. I'd be like, I'm getting a receiver and a corner and a pass rusher. That's it.
You literally just described the CFL. Do you know why that is?
Well, they have to have a certain
The
amount, don't they?
ratio. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a ratio that you have to
So
have.
so the majority have to be Canadian players, otherwise the Canadian fans won't support the product. So on offense, why am I going to waste my ratio on American O linemen?
Right.
Right? That's five guys right there. That's five in the position. So now what? Well, they play with 13 men and shit.
Do you remember when they made that big article about Argentina not having enough black players?
Not having enough.
Because they'd have none. They had none
Yeah,
because they're a racist team.
yeah. Well, I mean, let's not throw names out there. We'll just say they're a proud team. Uh,
That's what the article was saying. The article was saying
it's
that
like,
they were biased against black people because there's not enough black people on their team. They had none because they're in Argentina.
right, and all the excuse you.
Also, I was going to say, aren't black people so bad at soccer that Nelson Mandela had to get Matt Damon to play for his team? I don't watch the movie or know anything about soccer, but I think that was it.
No, no. So it's funny because there's a whole different type of soccer. First of all, the English invented it, right? And then like the South Americans and Brazilians essentially have a own style. The Spanish and Portuguese sort of have their own style. The Italians have their own style. And then the Africans are just like, I don't know. They're hurt a lot, try and shoot from far. They run fast, but there's never been an African World Cup winner.
Yeah,
There's
they had no control.
never.
No control. They lose the ball.
Yeah, so it's really funny to watch because each nation sort of has its own, and it's the funny thing about Team USA is our identity is what lacks because we have such a melting pot. And one is like our best athletes of young black kids and even like the really talented white dudes like Christian McCaffrey don't play soccer. They play football or basketball, right? Tyler Hero, who's 6'5" white dude on the Miami Heat, 6'6", should be a goalkeeper or a striker or something. Like they're that athletic. Like the best athletes in all these other countries, their best hope is to play some soccer. They got nothing else. Like none of them, maybe basketball.
Well, it's the same argument we make all the time for America in the Olympics with hockey, where it's just like we'll never beat Canada because that is their only sport. So even their black guys play it.
Yeah, right, exactly. We came close. We came real close. Remember the Ryan Miller team? That was,
Yes.
and we got,
TJ Oshie,
yeah,
Ryan
yeah, and we
Miller,
got we got
Zach
silver.
Parise.
We got silver in that one. But
Yeah, that was a heartbreaker. But who do we lose to? Canada.
that's what I'm saying. We almost did. We got silver in that one. That was the gold medal game, and it's just always going to be that way. But that's who you want to like strive to be. And when it comes to soccer in the U.S., it's not that it's not popular anymore. It's definitely got way more popular with more immigrants coming to this country. Um, but there is this sort of like try, and I told you this before when Eric told you that like Mario Balotelli was like the only black Italian soccer player, and he played for Manchester City. But like when Italy would go and play these other teams and stuff, or he would go and play, he was on these other club teams. They would throw bananas on the field, like when he was playing in Italy. Like, imagine if that happened to one of our athletes in America. Like, imagine.
Maybe they thought he was Mario Batali and they were trying to help him with ingredients.
Yeah, yeah, they were
This guy's from the Food Network, right? They just throw bananas at him.
definitely chanting "monkey" in Italian. They were like,
What is that word in Italian? I feel like we should know that.
I don't know. Well, yeah, is eggplant.
Yeah.
So it's something along those lines, right? Right.
Yeah. And then Moulignan became the symbol for dick.
Yeah, that's a weird, thing.
And that was just because of the Sopranos.
What, the dick?
The eggplant becoming the symbol for dick? I don't remember that.
No, that's not in The Sopranos. Oh, he was saying why he knows what Moliana is.
Oh, yeah, that could be it.
Fucking
Um,
Wooly.
well, anyway, good Tuesday sports show. For those of you guys listening live, and Debo, thanks for joining us and chiming in. We appreciate it.
Hold on though. Hold on though. Hold on
What
though.
do you got? I'm trying to wrap up here. What are you doing? Stepping on my dick?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, do you? I was gonna ask you as far as like who got when got fired. I had made the bold prediction that all AFC East coaches except for Gerard Mayo were gonna get fired. Didn't think Saleh would be the first one to get fired in Week 5.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think the other two will get fired. I don't think the other two will get fired.
This
I think the
season
Bills are going to
or
win too many games.
really?
Yeah, I think the other two are going to win too many games, and I think this could be the year the Bills get by the Chiefs. That remains to be seen, but the loss of receivers doesn't
What
seem
if
to
the
make a
Bills
difference.
lose to interim coach? I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers is now the coach of the Jets. So, what if the Bills lose to the Aaron Rodgers coached Jets on Monday night?
Yeah, I don't think that makes a difference. They would still be 3-2. They have a pretty soft schedule.
Okay, what about
I think.
Eagles this season? And we could be
Yeah,
end of year too. No, this is not middle of
yeah.
the season.
If you were to ask me who are the coaches that are going to be on the hot seat
Yeah,
that are
who goes
likely to be
next?
fired, Nick Sirianni will be the next head coach fired in the NFL mid-season. Like and again, these are guys that
Mid-season.
shouldn't. Yeah, these are the guys who should not have been. They should have not been given this season as an opportunity to turn it around. They should have been let go last year, and Salah stayed, and they realized that was a mistake. I think the other one that's going to go is obviously going to be Nick Sirianni. And other than that, I don't know that there's anybody else that I would say is in jeopardy of being fired, mid-season. I don't think Dan Campbell's going anywhere. I don't think Sean McVay is going anywhere. And there's so many new coaches around the league over the last couple years. Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson might be the other guy that gets fired mid-season, but I think Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni are probably the only other two that really have a shot at being fired mid-season.
So no end of season could be whatever. Who do you think gets canned and is not going to be there next year?
Pierce, John Gruden's going to be the new quarterback. I mean, new coach.
Everybody
Of
said
the
Gruden,
Raiders?
but Gruden can't be a coach until that lawsuit is done because he's suing the NFL right now
Yeah,
for
and
two
I
hundred
think they
fifty
have to.
million.
I think they would have to settle and let him back in for that to happen.
They already turned
But I
Um,
on
think Pierce is going to
Pierce.
be gone.
You guys already turned
yeah,
on him.
yeah. I don't
The
know. I
Raiders
mean,
fans did. The Raiders
yeah,
fans did.
I don't know. I don't. I think Pierce is doing a lot with very few groceries. I think I think it remains to be seen that Mark Davis has the same hair trigger or trigger finger that his father had. I don't think he's going to get rid of Antonio Pierce that quickly. Um, but I will say what we said last year. I think the problem with the culture he's trying to build in that locker room is they need a black quarterback. Like you
Yeah,
can't have this all black everything tough mindset and bring in Gardner Minshew to be the face of your franchise. It doesn't work. So, they are a team that needs to make a deal for somebody like a Hendon Hooker. They could potentially bring in, or draft somebody like Shador Sanders next year, which I think would be a mistake. I think Hendon Hooker's a way better quarterback than Shador Sanders. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but I do think the Raiders, they're going to start selling big time. I think they realize that without a quarterback, this season is pretty shot, and you should have known that going in, knowing what division you're in. So they're the only team in that division that doesn't have a quarterback now, and they've got to figure that out before they can start to build anything. And having all these, high money receivers, this stockpile of great tight ends, and a pretty good defense, an elite defensive end. I just don't really see them competing. They're not a piece away. They're like 5, 6, 7 strong pieces away from being a competitive team in that division. Um,
but it's something. And just real quick before we get out of here, another division on there, and I said this because our friend Eric Abenante had said, "You guys should go, get John Gruden or whatever." And I explained to him the same thing I said to Debo. The lawsuit thing that puts a thing in the question. I want Mike Vrabel. All the Jets Twitter is buzzing that we can get Belichick was our coach for a day and then put a curse on us and left. People want Belichick to like come back and shit. Do you think we
but
land a
well, Mike
coach?
Vrabel, Mike Vrabel might not leave Cleveland. Like if they decide Stefanski is the problem, at this point. Vrabel's in that building as some sort of assistant or something,
Mm,
quality control or front office guy. Mike Vrabel might end up being the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. So, I think that is the job he covets. He's an Ohio guy.
mhm.
I think he wants that Browns coaching job. I think he's going to get the Browns coaching job. Then the question remains to be seen is what the fuck do they do with that albatross of a terrible contract of Deshaun Watson's? But I
Jeebus.
think I think that's where he ends up with. I think Stefanski, like a lot of these guys, I think you could look across the NFL. I think there are probably 15 or 16 coaches that should have never been anything other than a coordinator because they just don't have what it takes to motivate today's athlete.
No,
And
or
we
or be
talk about this,
big
but like
picture guys, right?
Eberflus, a guy who never should have been anything other than a coordinator. I say the same thing about Sirianni, McDaniel, even though I like McDaniel. He's not these guys aren't leaders of men, and so and there are guys that are young coaches that I think are promising, but it still remains to be seen. Can D'Amico Ryans be a successful head coach in the NFL? Like to me, he reminds me so much of Lovey Smith. Like, is he going to be a guy that has nothing but a winning record and never wins a Super Bowl or big games. I think the big difference for D'Amico Ryans is early on, he's got a guy like CJ Stroud, whereas Lovie Smith never had a quarterback all those years in Chicago. So, but there really is a shift that has to happen in the way these front offices think, where they got to stop trying to find moneyball head coaches. You can have a moneyball offensive coordinator, you can have a moneyball GM. You
Mm-hmm.
need a fucking football coach to coach your football team. And the fact that guys like Rex Ryan are into fucking the booth instead of on the sideline tells you that they have made the wrong cultural shift over the last 15 years. And I would take Rex Ryan over half the coaches in the NFL right now, because I know Rex Ryan is going to hold guys accountable when they don't do their fucking job. I know Tom Cable is going to hold guys accountable when they don't do their job.
So, speaking of accountability, this is from Connor Hughes, who's an SNY reporter. Okay, covers the Jets. He said sources. Former Jets head coach Robert Saleh was never going to fire offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. That was not happening. However, he was going to demote him his game day responsibilities this week. Saleh made decision to give play calling to Todd Downing because of the continued issues on offense. He made that final decision Tuesday morning. Then, roughly 5 minutes later, he was called into Woody Johnson's office and fired. Based off Jeff Ulbricht's press conference, it sounds very much like he too is considering giving play calling to Downing. The Jets expressed concern with Hackett this offseason in their attempts to add Arthur Smith as a senior advisor. He would have been the lead offensive voice. However, he took the Steelers' OC job instead. Again, this is Connor Hughes, and he's SNY. He's the Jets reporter. Um,
Yeah. Well, we all know that they have a Hackett problem. And speaking of which, like when you talk about ineffectual coaches, like you got to be one of the worst coaches in the NFL, and you have to be
that's what
so
Sean
hated
Payton said.
to not get to finish out the season. And Nathaniel Hackett was that head coach in Denver, where he got like 4 weeks, and they were out on him after one season, not even a full season.
Yeah, and now he's here, and it happened to Salah, and I bet Salah was like, nobody gonna say nothing about this cocksucker, right? Like, he's just like,
But again, like Salah's a guy. Like I don't know that Salah is a quote unquote leader of men. I think he understands scheme. I think he knows how to draw up. I think he's an
right.
instinctual defensive play caller. You can't be the head guy.
I give you. So I would like to pitch for Vrabel. I think that's where Woody should go. Otherwise, I'm on this side, and I'll just end. With that, I think Johnson should be forced to sell the team. He's on it for 24 years. I think he's a piece of shit owner. I think he's doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I think he just goes. You guys think that's good? They laughed at uh, Larry David when Larry David said you should draft this kid from Louisville. You seen this kid from Louisville? And they said, ha ha, stick to comedy, leave the football to us, Larry. And look at this shit. Couple unanimous MVPs since. If he would have just had Joe Douglas and this fucking team, no telling what they would have done with this fucking offense. There's not even an Aaron Rodgers question there. It's just ridiculous.
And
So
by the way, I don't think Joe Douglas drafted Sam Darnold. I think Joe Douglas was with Baltimore when they drafted Lamar Jackson.
yeah.
And then he came the next year or 2 years later he came when they drafted Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I really think he should just be forced to fucking sell the team. I mean, they made what's his name sell the Clippers because of some N word bullshit. Why don't you make this guy sell? I think they should sick the Palestinian fucking protesters on him and be like, he sends arms to fucking Israel, and like make it really bad and be like, the Jets are supporting genocide. Like if they started boycotting our team, I wouldn't even care. I'd be like, oh, dude, you better cave.
just comes out wearing a jacket made of pastrami, like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I am a protected class, and you cannot strip me of my franchise rights.
This is so anti-Semitic. Make sure you kill all of them.
Dude, by the way, completely random topic. Probably something we should save for tomorrow's regularly scheduled Big Uglies podcast.
Arby's?
No, not Arby's. I watched the Word documentary on Amazon Prime, and
Oh, Diane Ward. Yeah, yeah,
there's a moment in there where they go, so we have to bring this up. You guys are kind of controversial, right? People think you're homophobic, and Ninja just goes, "Yeah, I don't get it because our fucking DJ's a fucking raging homosexual."
yeah.
And it's just they cut to DJ Hightech, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been gay since I was a child." And he's just like lifting weights on Venice Beach wearing a DJ mask, and I go, and then it goes, "Oh wow, their DJ's a raging homosexual," and I go, "Yeah, and by the way, every DJ is a fucking raging homosexual."
Dude, this infatuation with DJs now. Kids go to things like metal nights and emo nights and stuff like that, and it's a DJ. It's not bands
Playing
playing.
the music, yeah, it's not a band.
I'm like, what the fuck is that? Who's playing the music?
It is a problem. It is a problem. So, anyway, something to talk about for tomorrow's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/The Big Uglies Podcast. And then our regular episode, same time tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Wednesday. It's our everything show, not sports show. So, we'll be live here on X for that. And thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes, sir.